World War II had escalated to levels of destruction and cruelty that humanity had never seen before. In the Pacific, Japan and the United States had been locked in relentless warfare for 4 years. The conflict in this theater wasn't just a series of battles. It was a full-scale war that left a historic mark with its horrors and human suffering. On July 26, 1945, US President Harry S. Truman issued an ultimatum to the Japanese government: surrender unconditionally or face prompt and utter destruction.
Received this afternoon a message from the Japanese government in reply to the message forwarded to that government by the Secretary of State on August 11th. I deem this reply a full acceptance of the Potsdam Declaration, which specifies the unconditional surrender of Japan. In the reply, there is no qualification. Arrangements are now being made for the formal signing of the surrender terms.
However, Truman's message did not clarify the type of weapon or tactics that would be used. At the time, the Japanese government had no idea that the United States possessed a new, devastating weapon: the atomic bomb. The idea of creating a weapon based on nuclear energy emerged during the early years of World War II. Scientists who had taken refuge in the United States, like Leo Szilard and Albert Einstein, warned about the possibility of the Nazis developing this devastating technology. In 1939, Einstein and Szilard wrote a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, alerting him to the dangers of this potential weapon. This letter led to the birth of the Manhattan Project, a research and development effort that employed more than 130,000 people and cost around $2 billion at the time. The bomb, named Little Boy, was built using uranium-235. Inside, it worked like a kind of gun, firing one piece of uranium at another, which triggered a nuclear chain reaction, releasing unimaginable energy. This weapon was transported by the plane Enola Gay, a B-29 bomber, which on August 6, 1945, flew over the city of Hiroshima to carry out its mission. At 8:15 a.m., the Enola Gay dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. The explosion occurred 600 meters above the city, generating a blinding flash of light and a huge mushroom cloud that rose quickly. The energy released by the blast was equivalent to 15 kilotons of TNT, producing a heat wave that reached over 4,000 degrees Celsius. In seconds, Hiroshima was plunged into total chaos and devastation. The impact of the explosion affected a radius of 4.5 kilometers, completely destroying nearly 70% of the city's buildings. The blast wave and the heat wave killed between 50,000 and 100,000 people on the spot. To this, massive fires added even more destruction, spreading across a 7-kilometer area and continuing for 3 days. From Tokyo, authorities received confusing reports about the catastrophe. They tried to contact Hiroshima, but all communication lines were cut off. There were no signs of life from the city, nor responses from military headquarters or radio stations. In a desperate effort to understand what had happened, the Japanese General Staff sent a young officer to investigate the situation on the ground. As he approached Hiroshima, the pilot and officer saw a column of smoke still rising over the city. When they landed, they found an apocalyptic scene: deserted streets, buildings reduced to rubble, and bodies everywhere. No one yet understood what kind of weapon could have caused this level of destruction, though it soon became clear that this was no ordinary explosion. What followed was a nightmare for the survivors. The radiation released by the bomb caused illnesses unfamiliar to most doctors at the time. Thousands of people suffered symptoms of radiation poisoning: fever, vomiting, hair loss, and, in many cases, a slow and painful death. These survivors came to be known as hibakusha. The population of Hiroshima, especially the hibakusha, faced stigma for decades, as many believed that radiation was contagious. This made it difficult for them to reintegrate into society, find employment, or build personal relationships. The Hibakusha Survivor Organization fought for recognition for these victims, achieving medical and legal advances for them. Paul Tibbets, the commander and pilot of the Enola Gay, never expressed remorse for his role in the bombing. However, other members of the mission, like Claude Etherly, who piloted the observation plane, experienced deep emotional conflict and, in some cases, mental health issues that led them to question their participation in this devastating operation. Today, the Enola Gay is a museum exhibit at the Smithsonian in Chantilly, Virginia. This display has sparked controversy for years, as for some, it is a symbol of mass destruction, while for others, it represents the end of a war that could have caused even more deaths. In the following years, Hiroshima rebuilt and transformed itself into a thriving city. Despite the horrors of the bomb, the dedication of the citizens and their resilience led Hiroshima to become a symbol of peace. Initiatives like the Green Legacy Hiroshima distribute seeds from the trees that survived the bombing around the world. These trees, known as Hibakujumoku, have become symbols of hope and life. Today, Hiroshima is a fully inhabited city, living with the memory of its tragedy while moving forward. In contrast, places like Chernobyl, where nuclear disasters of a different nature occurred, will remain uninhabited for centuries due to the persistence of radioactive elements in the soil. Throughout history, the bombing of Hiroshima has sparked countless reflections on the ethics of science and the destructive power that humanity can unleash. Albert Einstein, whose famous equation E=mc2 helped explain nuclear energy, was sometimes mistakenly associated directly with the bomb's development. Although his intent in signing the letter to Roosevelt was to prevent the Nazis from developing the weapon first, the devastation the bomb caused led him to question the role of scientists in warfare.
That mass and energy are but different manifestations of the same thing, a somewhat unfamiliar conception for the average mind. Furthermore, the equation E=mc², in which energy is put equal to mass multiplied with the square of the velocity of light, showed that very small amount of mass may be converted into a very large amount of energy, and vice versa. The mass and energy were in fact equivalent, according to the formula mentioned above. This was demonstrated by Kokra and Walton in 1932 experimentally.
The story of Hiroshima serves as a warning and a living memory of the consequences of war, but it's also a reminder of humanity's ability to rebuild and seek peace.